Now, if you're just starting photography, you might have heard of the terms stops of light, stopping down, or even just the word stop being used everywhere. And maybe you've thought, why do lenses have weird f-stops like 2.8 or 5.6? Well, short answer is stops of light. It took me a while to figure out what a stop of light was. In fact, I never really looked into it until this video. I kind of knew roughly what it was, but I didn't know the maths behind it, essentially. Yeah, I'm pretty stupid. Take note, we will be quick and this won't be that detailed. For ISO, it's easy. Stops of light go like this. 100 to 200, that's a stop of light. 200 to 400, that's a stop of light. 400 to 800, 800 to 1600. If you haven't seen a pattern yet, the stop of light is doubling the ISO. So 400 ISO times 2 is 800, that's a stop of light. 400 to 800, stop of light. There you go. Now you can see why some film stocks are like that. 400 ISO, 800 ISO, 1600 ISO, 200 ISO, like how they're named. Portra 400, Portra 800, Kodak Gold 200, or even why your camera might max out at maybe 12,800. That's the reason. It's stops of light. For aperture, f1 to f1.4, stop of light. 1.4 to 1.2, that's a stop. f2 to f2.8, stop. So aperture goes up in multiples of 1.4. Now for some f-stops, it's not exactly 1.4 times what the previous f-stop was. Like f4 to f5.6, that's exactly 1.4 times. But 1.4 times the aperture of 1.4 is 1.96. So I guess we're just rounding it off to be a bit easier on our brains. Now you see why lenses have a wide aperture of 1.4, 2.8, 5.6, f8, f11. This can also answer your question for the term stopping down. Like when someone says they're stopping down their aperture, they're actually darkening the exposure. They're stopping down light. I was at f2.8 and I needed to stop down to f5.6 to get more in focus. Shutter speed. Now we're gonna do this backwards because the longer you open your shutter, the more light comes in, if you haven't figured that out yet. If you haven't, then you're new. Welcome. So 8 thousandths of a second to 4 thousandths of a second. 8 thousandths of a second to 4 thousandths of a second is a stop of light. 4 thousandths of a second to 2 thousandths of a second. I can barely say that. Stop of light. 2 thousandths of a second to 1 thousandths of a second. You guessed it. That's a stop of light. If you haven't figured that out, halves. It goes by halves. You need exactly one more stop of light from 500th of a second. We'll half it to 250th of a second. You need to add one more stop of light from a 30th of a second, 60th of a second. Easy. Hope you learned something today. As I said, I did a little bit of research to see the maths behind this, aka I googled it and clicked on the first thing and it made sense. In the description, I'll actually drop a link to the thing that I seen. This is a blog post by John Rowell? I don't even know how to say it. Has very simple explanations with some diagrams so you can visually see what we're talking about here. But if I told you all I needed to know, then sweet. Anyway, if you like street photography, especially POV videos, or you like mundane, still life photos, then check out my channel. And if you want, like you don't have to, you can like, you can comment, you can subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Share the video to your work group chat, send it to your bae and Snapchat. It doesn't matter. I don't really care. Do whatever you want. Hope you learned something. Now remember, if you don't go out and take shit photos, you will never take good photos. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Hurry the fuck up and go out and take photos. Like, just...